there is evidence of a sudden appearance of instant civilizations. The commonly held view is that we came up from savage Stone Age beginnings. It was a slow but steady development to civilization. However, friends, actual discoveries show this is not so. All cultures began suddenly and fully developed. A long preliminary period is not supported by archaeology. The evidence shows no transition whatsoever between the ancient civilizations and any primitive forebears. They did not rise to their peak, they were at their peak from the beginning. So take, for example, Egypt. We all know this is a symbol of Egypt, the Sphinx here at Giza. Egypt sprang into existence suddenly, fully developed, that is, without transition from a primitive state, with a fantastic ready-made civilization. Great cities, enormous temples, pyramids of overwhelming size. Now here is a building 48 stories high, the Great Pyramid at Giza. You notice the people here on the camels. Pyramids, as I said, of overwhelming size. Colossal statues with tremendous expressive power. Luxurious tunnels and tombs, splendid streets, perfect drainage systems, and even a ready-made writing already perfected. A well-established naming system in which every pharaoh had as many as 5 names. Society was already divided at the beginning into specialist classes and a court which exhibited all the indications of well-defined precedence and form. I tell you, friends, in the remotest period of which there are records, Egypt and its sister civilizations show a level of civilization that is inexplicable. We have here Babylon. Babylon rose in the site where Sumeria had first of all risen. Sumeria appeared around the same time as Egypt, a civilization sudden, unexpected, and out of nowhere. And in the same fertile crescent we go to Baalbek. See the size of the man. Now, Baalbek conceals a mystery that may never be solved. 2 magnificent Roman temples were built upon this great existing platform. An immense prehistoric dressed platform. And those 2 temples which were built on top of this, which were the greatest in the Roman world, were dwarfed by this platform. The platform is a feat of engineering that has never been equalled in history. And here we have individual stones. Look at the size of this one here. 1 stone, 2 stories above the ground, lifted into place. This would weigh anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 tons. Now, you notice they are raised into the building so high, and there are tunnels in the walling large enough for a train to go through. Now, even with the tools of modern technology, friends, we could not do something like this today. We could not move these building blocks intact. Our largest railway cars could hardly budge, let alone lift and carry these. It would take 3 of our largest overhead cranes, hoisting 400 tons each, to lift these, and I don't think it could be done without the stress breaking these objects. Supposing a block could be manoeuvred onto a wheeled vehicle, the enormous load would drive the wheels into the ground and grind them to pieces on the rock surface. We have here a mystery. Now, a third coincidence, we have the rising of Egypt suddenly. We have the rising of Sumeria suddenly. And a third coincidence was the sudden rise of the Indus Valley civilization about the same time. Now, here we have an aerial view of one of these cities in the Indus Valley, which is now located in Pakistani territory. These also appear to have suddenly sprung up with no clear-cut traces of having evolved from primitive beginnings. What is one to make of this? Well, yes, I know the 19th century evolution theory was developed and was foisted on us and in our education system, that man came up from the mud and he gradually rose higher and higher until he became clever as we are today. But could this be a myth? If the evidence is showing us so many surprises from the past, could it be, friends, that we have been mistaken in this theory? Could man have come down, not up, originally? The known facts are these. We have fully developed civilizations, several of them, sharing many features in common, suddenly springing out of nowhere. We have language and script and agriculture and anthropological and archaeological finds that point to a common origin in the Middle East highlands. And the discovered writings of these ancient people all speak of a vanished golden age. And not only that, nearly all traditions of the ancient races worldwide tell us that the biblical history is true, that man was very, very smart in the beginning. Now, Professor Albright of Johns Hopkins University said, this excessive skepticism shown toward the Bible by important historical schools has been progressively discredited. He says that discovery after discovery testifies to the accuracy of the Bible. I think, friends, that the Bible has been unjustly criticised in the past by people who did not know the facts of ancient technology, which confirms that the biblical viewpoint of history is, after all, well on track. Not only do we have these civilizations springing up suddenly, but we also have a common origin. Scripts of various cultures reveal a common origin. From Egypt to China to Easter Island to North America and the Indus Valley, there is a distinct link between them. Now, the pre-flood world was a world of high civilization, but man was morally corrupt and violent. After the global flood, the sole survival vessel landed up here in the mountains near Ararat. And if we pinpoint the subsequent instant civilizations that arose across the world in a short space of time, we find that Ararat, the dispersion point, lies precisely in the middle. Now, there can be only one conclusion regarding this, friends, that from Ararat the descendants spread out around the world, and they took with them an advanced knowledge that had been preserved through the Ark, knowledge that enabled new civilizations to spring up suddenly. The oldest civilizations we have on Earth appear just long enough after a disaster such as the flood for a population increase to produce another culture. When the nations of the earth spread out, they found that most of the earth was still very covered with water. For example, what is now today the Sahara Desert was once a great inland sea. If you go to Egypt today, you'll see a name very prominently. It's the name Misra. Misra travel agent, Misra Road, Misra Hotel. Misra is a shortened form of Mizraim. Now, Mizraim was a grandson of Noah. Mizraim came down to Egypt and he found that Egypt was still largely covered in water. There was no course to the Nile. It was spreading out everywhere. Large amounts of water were rushing off the continent still. And Mizraim embanked the Nile and made much of the land around the Nile habitable. In fact, the name Mizraim means the embanker. And Mizraim made Egypt here a land that could be settled in. There is evidence worldwide of great inland seas after the flood. We have puddles up here in Australia. Australia had a great inland sea. Asia was largely covered by water. As we saw in Africa, it was the same. In North America, there was a large inland sea left behind by the flood. Over here in South America, we do not have an Amazon jungle millions of years old, as sometimes is speculated. As recently as 3,000 years ago, this was just one great inland sea. And there's even an old map that shows this. Now, friends, the Chinese, when they came to China, they said that they had to drain the country and get rid of dragons that were there. And as we know, Mizraim likewise drained Egypt. In fact, this is the story of the ancient races. And these people did more than this. They actually went out mapping the land. There are many old maps. In fact, we have about 14 of them. Most of these are on a spherical projection. You notice here the similarity between this ancient map, which is basically thousands of years old. It's recognised as a medieval map, but the copyists said that they used sources which were much, much older. And if you compare this with a satellite sketch map of the Earth, you'll notice there's a very strong similarity. We're talking here about a round Earth known by the ancients. Here is an ancient map of Antarctica alongside a modern map of Antarctica. And where today we have glaciers, the old maps show there were rivers. These people knew and mapped the whole world back there. Now here we have from Egypt a world map. If we were to draw a line horizontally and vertically through the Great Pyramid at Egypt, and you were to measure the amount of land space in each of these 4 squares, it's equal. Now, by accident or design, the Great Pyramid marks the precise centre of the land mass of the world, north, south, east and west. And each quarter has exactly the same number of square miles of land. This does suggest to us that a world survey was once made. They went to places like Easter Island. They knew about the Americas. For example, Christopher Columbus only discovered what had been found long, long before and forgotten by many. Now here in South America we have some very interesting country. It's my favourite continent. You notice that here we have a great cliff going down, a big drop about probably 3,000 feet, maybe 1,000 metres down. And here on the side of a huge hill up in the Andes Mountains, we have a pathway that's been put right round the mountainside toward the ruins of an ancient city. Here is a drawbridge, and when the enemy came along, the drawbridge could be taken off and the enemy could not get through. But however did they do this? I mean, it's impossible to stand here, let alone build constructions. These people did not know the impossible, these jewellers in stone. And I remember my first trip down the Amazon. I took a little bus for 2 days, and I had a man sitting beside me actually chewing betel nut. The chickens and the little pigs and dogs were running all over the bus and fighting, and this man sat beside me for 2 days. And occasionally he would drowse off, then suddenly he'd clear his throat and he would expectorate onto the seat in front of me, which was overhanging my legs. But as the bus went around the mountainsides, it was very, very steep. And sometime we would find that there was a big chasm away down on one side, and just like this narrow pathway here, there was just enough room for the bus to come round. And I remember one occasion when the bus was negotiating this area, and there was on the side of the road a slip that had come down the cliff. And so the bus wheels went right sideways around this, and I could look away down the drop. I'll tell you, it's an unforgettable experience. Machu Picchu was well known on travel brochures. And friends, I just want you to notice this. We have this here 9,000 feet, 3,000 metres above sea level. On 3 sides there is a canyon. The canyon goes behind and back on this side. And this is a razorback. Notice how they built right on, their terraces right onto the edge of the cliff. And how they did that's absolutely amazing. But did you notice the terraces up here? Most people don't ever dare go up there. But these people constructed things up here. When the clouds move, this is very, very beautiful. The waterfalls come right down from mountains 20,000 feet high. But the civilizations of South America were very, very advanced. Today, the descendants of the Incas are a very depressed and a very suppressed people. But back in the early days, even before the Incas, there was a great civilization which did masterpieces in stone. You notice here a stone which has been put into place, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 sides to it. Now, how possibly could they have put that in? And this is not an isolated case. This was a common building method. Now, not only sideways and on top and below, but backwards behind. The stone had to fit into other stones as well. And to anyone who would suggest that this was done simply by rubbing the stones together until they fitted, let's get real about this, friends. These people were cleverer than we thought they were. Here we have the Sun Gate in Tiwanaku in Bolivia, a city which appears to have been built by giants. Absolutely amazing. Carved out of one piece of solid rock, brought from a quarry many miles away. Now here we go to China. China, if you didn't know it, has the largest man-made structure on this planet. And I'm not talking about the Great Wall of China. Here we have a pyramid. And this pyramid is larger than the Great Pyramid of Cheops. It's located 40 miles west, that's about 65 kilometres west of Sian, in Shenxi province of northwest China. It's on the old Marco Polo Silk Route. And there are 7 of these pyramids. They actually have colours on their sides. A flat top. The 4 colours on one side and another colour on the top. After all this time, the colour is still perceptible. And the Chinese say they're not going to excavate these because man is spiritually not right. And tourists are not taken here. But these have been photographed from the air at least twice. Now here's a comparison between the largest pyramid in Shenxi, which is 1,200 feet tall, and other well-known buildings like the Cheops Pyramid in Egypt, the Empire State Building in New York. Here we have the most massive building in the world. Now skeletons in Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa in the Indus Valley civilization are extremely radioactive. The ruins of these ancient Indus Valley civilizations and cities are immense. These cities, by the way, Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, are thought to have contained 1 million people each. Practically nothing is known of their histories, except both were destroyed suddenly. And in Mohenjo-Daro, in an epicenter 150 feet wide, that's 50 metres wide, everything was crystallized, fused or melted. 150 feet from the centre, the bricks are melted on one side, indicating a blast. Ancient Indian texts speak of a city's people being given 7 days' notice to get out of the city. A clear warning of total destruction. And excavations down to the street level revealed 44 scattered skeletons, as if doom had come suddenly and they could not get out of their houses. All the skeletons were flattened to the ground. A father, mother and child were found flattened on the street, face down and still holding hands. And my friends, these skeletons, after thousands of years, are still among the most radioactive that have ever been found. As a matter of fact, they're on a par with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 7 years after the first successful atom bomb blast in New Mexico, Dr. Oppenheimer, who was familiar with ancient Sanskrit literature, was giving a lecture at Rochester University. During the question and answer period, a student asked Dr. Oppenheimer a question, to which Oppenheimer gave a strongly qualified answer. The student said, "Was the bomb exploded at Alamogordo during the Manhattan Project the first one to be detonated?" Dr. Oppenheimer replied, "Well, yes, in modern times, of course."